guys, welcome back to another GeekaWhat video. In this video, I'm going to be building an awesome gaming PC build for the end of 2021 and of course 2022. This build is going to be perfect for some of the new AAA titles out, including Forza Horizon 5, Battlefield 2042, and of course Call of Duty Vanguard, with a powerful 12th gen Intel processor and RTX 3000 series GPU. In this video, I'll be running you through all the components and putting the system together as we go along before booting it up to see how good it looks later and of course just how well it performs. Something that's really important when you drop in this much dosh on a gaming PC. Let's do this. Let's kick things off by taking a look at the motherboard. Now, in a sense, the motherboard is the most important component of your build. It's what connects everything else together and is best seen as the beating heart or a skeleton of your gaming PC. This board here is an MSI Unify board with loads of really cool metal shielding at the back and their avoid collision standoff holes, never seen that before. This is a neutral all black motherboard that looks super stealthy and super awesome. With Gen 5 PCIe support, room for the latest DDR5 memory and stacks of overclocking performance, this is a really future-proof motherboard with key features like a QLED debug display and onboard power and reset buttons that make it actually really good for debugging your system and getting started without any issues. Into the motherboard, I'll be installing our processor, Intel's Core i9-12900K. Now, I realise that a lot of YouTubers like me get carried away and pick often a Ryzen 9 or an i9 for the sake of it. But the new Intel chips are so good that I just couldn't help myself. With what Intel call their efficiency and their performance cores, these CPUs provide a step change in performance, and no offense to Ryzen, absolutely destroy it hands down. I'm excited to see what AMD's response will be to 12th gen, but for now, these are most definitely the best CPUs on the market. The new socket design as well from Intel is a good improvement actually over the last one. You push down the top half, then pop down the bottom half and it secures nice and easily. I'll be coupling our CPU up with 32GB of RAM from Corsair. One of the actual disadvantages of the new Intel processors is DDR5 memory. Now, the new RAM standard is great, and it paves the way for more memory bandwidth, much higher speeds, but at the moment it is a little bit expensive. Corsair though have got some pretty good options, and this Vengeance kit is one of the better value DDR5 sets available on the market. Much like DDR4, we're just going to install in alternating slots, slots 2 and slots 4 for this build. Nothing really has changed there. Something that is a bit unique for this build though is our M.2 SSD drive. MSI have entered the market of cases, of power supplies, and now of SSDs too, and their Spatium M480 is genuinely one of the fastest Gen 4 drives out there. Nothing really apart from Seagate's FireCuda 530 comes close, with a drive that provides 7GB a second read and write. A lot of Gen 4 drives provide the read, but they let themselves down when it comes to the write speeds. Not MSI. In order to go ahead and remove your M.2 drive, you need to first take off this M.2 slot cover. Now, Gen 5 support is a massive bonus when it comes to Z690 motherboards, like this one from MSI. We aren't going to actually put the heatsink back on, as our Spatium M480 includes one as standard. To install the SSD, it should be a simple case of sliding it in at a 45-degree angle and pushing it down. You'll then find this little plastic retention bracket, which should in theory slot over the top of the drive. But unfortunately, this drive with all of its extra M.2 shielding that we've added with the included heatsink means it just doesn't quite fit. So I need to go back to the drawing board and potentially screw this in instead. It's time for take 2. I've gone ahead and picked up a screw. I'm going the traditional route and I'm going to see if this works a little bit better. So let's slide the drive in, push it down, magnetic tip as well, so hopefully it shouldn't fall off. And then, oh yes, marvellous. Sometimes the old ways are still the best ways of doing things, at least in my humble opinion. With that done, I think we can go ahead and move our motherboard into the case. There's not really any other components we can deal with before doing so. For the case in this build, I've selected a chassis from MSI. When I say they've gone into so many different sectors, making so many different components, that range true, and their Velox 100P and 100R are prime examples of this. I really like this case though. It's strong on airflow, strong on RGB, and actually pretty strong on price point, coming in at less than what I'd expected for a chassis like this one. In order to install the motherboard into the case, you want to remove not only the front glass side panel, but also the metal side panel on the other side of your case. Removing as many side panels as possible is a great rule of thumb, and makes the whole process just a lot easier really. For our build today, I'm going to go ahead and lay the case down flat on our table, as installing the motherboard this way is going to be a lot easier. Aesthetically, I think this motherboard as well matches really nicely with the case. It gives us a neutral all black design with obviously a hint of gold from our M.2 drive. Spinning the case around will make this next stage of the process super easy. We want to slide the motherboard in and then line our I/O shield on the motherboard, that's all these ports and connections, up with our rectangular cutout on the case. Drop it over those standoffs, a little something like this, and then we can go ahead and secure the screws in place. We've got 3 screws across the top, 3 along the middle, and 3 along the bottom. Once you've done that, your motherboard's installed, and we can move on to the CPU cooler. This right here is the Corsair H150i Elite, a 360mm unit that's not only compatible with the new chips as far as mounting hardware goes, but also capable of keeping them nice and cool. Now this is going to work really well for our system today. The 360mm radiator provides plenty of cooling capacity for these chips, which do undoubtedly run a little bit hotter. A lot of drama's been made about the new Intel CPUs, but take a look at some of the gameplay footage we've gathered on your screen now, and compare the temperatures in the top left corner to some of the ludicrous results posted by other media. Yes, if the CPU is pinned at 100% for half an hour, it does get very toasty, but for normal gaming applications, even with a 3070 Ti, it's not actually all that bad. As if there weren't enough selling points for this cooler, it's also got a screen on it. And knowing Corsair, they implement these things so incredibly well in Corsair iCUE. I'm going to install the radiator into the front of the case alongside our lovely included RGB fans first, and then we'll come back to the water block. It installs nice and easily, those 3 120mm units providing plenty of airflow, not only through the radiator, but also for the rest of the system. To install the water block itself, you want to take the following mounting hardware. The first is this backplate here. It's black with these silver screws. You'll then also find yourself having a male-to-male screw thread on top. That is this thing right here. And then you'll also find yourself with a thumb screw. The backplate needs to go through the rear of the motherboard, through the 4 holes we'll circle now, with the male-to-male screws going on top, the cooler on top of that, and then thumb screws to finish everything off and fasten it into place. It sounds a lot more complicated than it is, but hopefully the footage will pop on your screen now, makes the whole process a little bit more bearable. With the cooler in, we can then finally move on to the GPU. Now this right here is the MSI Suprim X RTX 3070 Ti. Now the new GPUs from Nvidia, the 3000 series, have seen huge stock and availability issues, and it's something that we discussed in a recent video which you can check out now. To be clear, I'm not suggesting that anyone watching can find this card for anywhere near MSRP, though up-to-date pricing and availability for all other components can be found at the affiliate links in the description. The 3070 Ti and by extension 3080, 3070 are all fantastic GPUs, and hopefully as silicon shortages ease as we head into 2022, more people will be able to buy them. DLSS is fantastic, ray tracing is also pretty good, and straight rasterization as far as gaming at 1440p and 4K is phenomenal, but you guys already knew that. This card from MSI is a really fantastic cooler. It beats out the Strix from some of our testing, which is really impressive, but truth be told, any 3070, 70 Ti, 80 Ti that you can actually find for a price you're happy with is what I'd go for in this build. I went for MSI as it fits in with the all MSI theme, and I think personally it will look fantastic. Now to install this, we need to remove a couple of the PCIe covers, that's these metal brackets at the back of the case. Hover your GPU over. I've just realised how tight that is. It literally fits by millimeters. The top PCI slot, and then that will show you which of the lanes need removing. For us, we need to take off the second and third, which we can do with these 2 screws just here. Remove those, slot your GPU in, and then we'll have to give it power with the final component of our build today, this. Our power supply choice today. MSI have entered the market of PSUs as well, surprisingly, and this A850GF is an awesome choice. It's 850 watts, 80 plus gold, and it has a 10-year warranty. As much as it fits with the theme of this build, I've not just gone all MSI for the sake of it. This has got some great credentials and comes in at a fantastic price point. You also get an included bag of fully modular cables, meaning you only plug in the power supply cables you actually need. This keeps cable management and cable clutter to a minimum and makes things nice and easy. This video won't be a detailed cables and wiring guide, though we have got one coming for 2022 very soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that. In the meantime, meantime, I'm going to go ahead and get our system all powered up, juiced and ready to go, and then we can boot it up to test out the gaming performance. Before that though, enjoy some lovely visuals of this PC all powered up with of course our Corsair iQOO RGB and MSI's RGB fan at the rear to see just how good our chassis looks. I'll see you in a second, but first, roll that montage. Awesome stuff. Now that we've seen how good the system looks when it's all powered up, it's time to test out the performance and make sure this machine stacks up against the competition. On your screen now is a summary, a snapshot view of all the different games that we tested out on this PC, and you can find full unedited benchmark runs of all titles at the playlist link in the description below and the card section now. I'll be taking a closer look though title by title, kicking off with the brand new Battlefield 2042. Here at 1440p medium settings, we achieved more than 90 frames per second on average, which really is very strong for this title. All of our frame rate data was tested using Nvidia FrameView and MSI Afterburner's RevaTuner for maximum fairness. Moving on to Call of Duty Vanguard, and here we tested out at 4K high settings with DLSS enabled. 105 frames per second on average was a really solid result, with 91 and 79 for the 90 and 99th percentiles. Forza Horizon 5 also worked well. At 4K ultra settings, we got more than 80 frames per second when testing in the game's inbuilt benchmarking mode, with a 99th percentile result that was just 11 frames per second behind. Impressive stuff. Moving on to Halo Infinite, another brand new title on the list today, we tested out at 1440p medium settings. Here we managed to achieve 103 frames per second, and the game visually looked incredible. Great job on the new Halo, guys. Moving on to Apex Legends next up, racking through them nice and quickly today. Here we tested out at 4K high settings to see what would happen if we pushed the 3070 Ti Suprim to its limits. Here we managed to get 85 frames per second on average, a result I was personally super happy with. Finally, to wrap things up, we also tested out a bit of Fortnite at 1080p low/competitive settings. Here we got 284 frames per second on average. Once again, really impressive stuff. And it's great to see the 3070 Ti is not being bottlenecked by the CPU, especially at those lower resolutions. With that though, that pretty much wraps it up for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to get subscribed, drop a like rating as well if you'd like to see more from us, and give us those good algorithm points. Thanks a lot for tuning in though, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.